Yeah.
Do you see something like this work on a more decentralized home-level mining? What do you see any?
Yeah, let's talk about really speculative, but I think exciting. Yeah, potentially very exciting, or the vision's exciting for Bitcoin. Whether it's economical is TBD. But imagine what we just discussed, but instead of on an industrial scale, on an individual scale. So some of you in the audience might have solar panels on your home. And imagine a future where tens of millions of people around the world have solar at their home, and it's actually off the grid, and it's able to do Bitcoin mining in a way for that individual, that homeowner, to take excess energy that's stranded and wouldn't be used for anything else for their needs, to actually make some money, because they could do Bitcoin mining. The second thing, of course, is that it has very nice privacy features, because it would be a very small footprint and it's off the grid. So I think it really helps with both privacy and decentralization aspects of Bitcoin.
And it's the most private way to get Bitcoin as well, through mining.
It's also
You guys, figured I'd throw up the chat going on in Bitcoin Miami. Got the chart up. We'll throw the camera on and stuff in a little bit here, but it's been quiet streams lately. Figure, why not just have a little chill? People are watching it anyway, so. Beep.
To individual miners, and so in this long-term future of individual mining with solar at your home, that individual would also be participating directly in transaction selection as well as part of the Bitcoin mining process. So it's very speculative whether the economics would work out for that, but I think it's something we should be talking about as a community and as an ecosystem, because it has a number of very positive aspects if it is economical.
Steve, our time is up. Thank you for being on stage with me. Thank you everyone for being here, and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I promise I'm not wearing these because I think I'm cool. If everyone could take their seats, we have a bit of an update. For those of you who joined us at the end of the day yesterday, you were fortunate enough to be able to hear Ross Ulbricht in a recorded interview with Bitcoin Magazine. We've gotten word today that after that interview was played, they have now taken Ross back into the hole. In his honor, I've decided that we are going to replay the interview so that you guys can all hear it. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Ross Ulbricht.
You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from Ross at a federal prison. This call is being recorded and is subject to monitoring. Heading up to decline the call or to accept, dial 5 now. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Hello?
Hi, Ross. It's Peter from Bitcoin Magazine.
Is it good to go?
Yep.
All right. Hello, this is Ross Ulbricht. I'm calling you today from prison, from a maximum security federal penitentiary. We don't have much time together today, and I don't know if I'll get another chance to talk to you like this. I'll say as much as I can, but when it's time to go, I'll have to hang up and go back to my cell. I have lost my freedom. That's what I want to talk to you about today. I want you to understand what it means to lose your freedom. But first, let's talk about Bitcoin. I was there during Bitcoin's early days. Back then, Bitcoin made me feel like anything was possible. Bitcoin was open to everyone, right? That's what I love so much about it. It was It was like it leveled the playing field. When the idea of Bitcoin really clicked for me, I got so excited. I thought, with Bitcoin, I can try to do something that actually makes a difference. And by the way, before I was put in prison, we didn't have all these different cryptocurrencies and tokens and everything. I missed all that. So to me, it's all one thing. The forks, the new blockchains, all of it. So when I say Bitcoin, I'm not making those distinctions. To me, it may sound kind of corny, but to me, we're all one big family. So I was excited back then, but I was also very impatient. I saw what Bitcoin could do for freedom and equality, but I didn't take the time to really understand it. I didn't fully appreciate the principles it's based on. Things like immutability and consensus, and of course, decentralization. I had so many big dreams for Bitcoin, and what's so beautiful is slowly, those dreams are coming true. That's because of you. You are making those dreams a reality. You are doing what I didn't have the patience for. These last 8 years now in prison, over and over, I've been so impressed with how far we've come. But back then, I was impatient. I rushed ahead with my first idea, which was Silk Road. Silk Road was a website I made when I was 26 years old, more than a decade ago now. It used Tor and Bitcoin to protect people's privacy. I called it an anonymous market. At the time, I thought, if Bitcoin makes payments anonymous and private, then what are we waiting for? Why are we sitting around talking about it? Let's put it into action. That's impulsive. That's a 26-year-old who thinks he has to save the world before someone beats him to it. I had no idea if Silk Road would work, but now we all know it caught on. It was used to sell drugs, and now I'm in prison. I was given 2 life sentences without parole, plus 40 years. I'm a nonviolent, first-time offender, but if nothing changes, I'll spend the next few decades in this cage. Then, sometime later this century, I'll grow old and die. I'll finally leave prison, but I'll be in a body bag. I got a letter the other day. It was from someone I hadn't met before. He was thanking me. He was grateful I had put Silk Road online all those years ago. He believed that Bitcoin wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for Silk Road. I'm not sure. For better or worse, Silk Road is part of Bitcoin's history now, but I worry that by putting Silk Road online, I made things harder for us. There's no way to know how things would have turned out differently, but I just want to say, to the extent that I made things harder for us, I'm sorry. To the extent that my actions led to drug abuse and addiction, I'm sorry. I was trying to do something good. I was trying to help us move toward a...
This call is from a federal prison.
Sorry, this is prison. I was trying to help us move toward a freer and more equitable world. But we all know the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And now here I am. I'm in hell. I want you to understand what it means to lose your freedom. Let me start by telling you about the hole goes by many names. The shoe, segregation, the box. But for me, it's the whole. The whole is the prison within the prison. I once spent 4 months straight in the hole. Not easy for me to talk about, but I will. The hole can make you or break you, and there was a time when it broke me. It started with my mind racing out of control. I felt like the walls were crushing in on me, like I just had to get out of that cell. This lasted days. Then I started beating the walls and kicking the heavy metal door. Something deep inside me cried out for freedom. I couldn't accept where I was or what had happened to me. But eventually I realized I had to get a grip. The stress was destroying me. It may sound strange, but what saved me was gratitude. But what could I be grateful for in that little cell? Well, I had to start small. I had air, right? Maybe it was stale and foul, but I had air. I had water that didn't make me sick. Food came through the slot in the door every day. I knew I wasn't forgotten. My family, I knew someday it would be over and my family would still be there. I forgave all the people involved in putting me in prison. I had to. The anger I felt wasn't hurting them, but it was hurting me. So, for the sake of my sanity, I had to let it go. I had a dream while I was in the hole, and in the dream I was free. I was in a park, and I felt this huge relief. I wasn't in prison anymore. But then I got worried. Am I out on bail or something? Or are they going to put me back in? Are they after me right now? And I started trying to get away, and the anxiety, it woke me up. And there I was again, in the hole. And it was like everything that had happened to me over all these years, it all came slamming down on me at once, like life without parole, maximum security. I've been in the hole for months, and there's no end in sight. I want you to understand what it means to lose your freedom. My mother, this was after I was sentenced, my mother was invited to give a speaking tour in Europe. She was raising awareness about what had happened to me and was looking for help. At a talk in Poland, she started to feel a bit sick and had to fly home early. So the next morning, I called my sister from the prison, and the first thing she said was, "Has anyone told you about Mom yet?" I said, "What about her?" And she said to me in this voice, she said, "Oh, Ross. And I knew her mom had been feeling sick, and in that moment, I just knew my sister was gonna...
This call is from a federal prison.
My sister was gonna tell me our mom was dead. But she said, "Mom's in the hospital," and I was like, "Oh, thank God, she's not dead." But then I was like, wait, the hospital? That's not good either. Technically, our mother had died. Her heart stopped at the breakfast table that morning. My uncle kept it going with CPR, and she was rushed to the hospital. She was unconscious in the ICU when I called. It was a long time before I was able to talk to her, and I didn't know if she would live. We didn't know if there would be brain damage. I knew it was my fault. She had been redlining for 2 years since the day I was arrested, pushing every moment of every day for my freedom. Stress-induced cardiomyopathy. They call it broken heart syndrome. I broke my mother's heart, and it nearly killed her. The pain I've caused my family. I didn't think of them, not as much as I should have, when I was taking those risks, when I was risking my freedom. My mom made a full recovery, thank God. 8 years later, she still pushes for me every day. But the whole ordeal, my imprisonment, has been devastating for her. And not just her. My fiance, my father, my sister, everyone. They're all hurting. I want you to understand what it means to lose your freedom. There's more to losing your freedom. It's more than being locked in a cage and the devastation that brings to your family. Locking someone in a cage until they die, it's such a horrific thing to do to a person. To lock someone in a cage until they die, the public, you have to be convinced that person is evil, that they are somehow less than human. After I was arrested, another prisoner came up to me, a young man. He had a magazine, and he said, Ross, they wrote an article about you. So I flipped to the article, and I'll never forget what I saw. It was an illustration of me. And what was so strange was the face had my features and proportions, but the skin had a putrid color. The eyes were bloodshot. I was hunched over like some kind of ghoul. I pushed the magazine away. I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't face what I was seeing. It felt like I could feel physical pain in my chest, like claws were tearing through me. The young man, he said, at least read what they're saying about you. And I said, why? Why listen to someone badmouth you and lie about you if you can't say anything back? He got quiet. Later that day, he told me they had done the same thing to him, not on national news, but in his local paper. They do it to all of us. So, after I said I didn't want to read it, he tore out the article and he shredded it right into the trash. Then he said, I don't want to read it either. That meant so much to me. I don't want to read it either. You see, you gave me hope that you wouldn't look at me like I'm some sort of monster. The caricature they created was a violent drug lord. That is not who I am. That is a lie. It's a lie that was carefully crafted to justify keeping me in this cage until I die. It's a lie designed to turn you against me, to turn your heart off. They lied. It's on the record. They cheated. That's on the record. They stole. 2 of them went to prison over the stealing. They hid evidence. That's on the record. They destroyed evidence. That's on the record. They planted evidence. That's on the record. At one point, they were looking into how they could give me the death penalty. They wanted to inject chemicals into my veins that would stop my heart. I had this dream where one of them was pointing a syringe at the soft spot of my neck, just under my chin. He kept getting closer and closer, and I backed away, but my back was against the wall. Every muscle in my body was tensed as I strained to get away. I was practically climbing the wall as the tip of the syringe came right next to my skin. I woke up in that exact same position. I was hyperventilating, my heart was pounding. I could still feel the needle coming toward me. Are you starting to understand what it means to lose your freedom? It means living in constant fear. Why has it taken me all these years to finally talk to you? I've been afraid. Even now, I was strongly warned against talking to you. You'll only anger the authorities even more. You'll ruin what little chance you have left in the courts. Well, it's not my intention to anger anyone, and yes, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of retaliation. I'm afraid that because of what I'm saying to you today, I'll be thrown in the hole, or worse. But I've learned that listening to your fears can be just as dangerous as ignoring them. Somehow 8 years have slipped by. It's been easier to ignore the lies and everything else, to just focus on getting through each day and trying to be strong for my family.
This call is from a federal prison.
But today, right now, I have a message for those that have been lying about me and those that have been thoughtlessly repeating those lies. Please stop. You are hurting me. Please stop. You know what you're saying isn't true. You are hurting me and you're hurting my family. Please stop. I want you to understand what it means to lose your freedom.
Holy crap. This is not what I thought it would be. I was listening earlier and it was like Kevin O'Leary and Tony Hawk, and this is a little rough to watch. Let's hope he finishes soon.
The irony is that I made Silk Road in the first place because I thought I was furthering the things I cared about. Freedom, privacy, equality. But by making Silk Road, I wound up in a place where those things don't exist. I'm not alone. These prisons are full of people who don't deserve this. We are mothers and fathers. We are sisters and brothers, but we've been made into monsters in your eyes. We've been made less than human. And then, next to all that, there's Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been transforming our world since that very first block in the blockchain. And let me tell you something. We are just getting started. Wherever Bitcoin has been embraced, anywhere in the world, freedom and equality follow. Bitcoin is the embodiment of freedom. So now, look what we have. On one side, we have loss of freedom. We have despair and darkness. And on the other side, we have Bitcoin. We have freedom, equality, and hope. The two can't sit side by side, so the darkness has to be kept out of sight. It has to be ignored and forgotten. But listen, here I am. I'm crying out from that very same darkness. This is a cry for help. My mother can't do this by herself. And I'm crying out not just for me, but for all of us. We need your help. We need you to care. We need you to look at the stark contrast between the freedom of Bitcoin on the one hand and what it means to be locked in a cage until you die. We have a choice. Today, right now, do we ignore what's happening? The loss of freedom? The dehumanization? Or do we wake up? Listen, Bitcoin is strong. Bitcoin is powerful. We are powerful. And our work is not over. It's time to wake up. It's time to take the next step. I've spent the last 8 years watching Bitcoin grow up from here. I've seen incredible innovation. I've seen inspiring courage. We didn't know how things would turn out for Bitcoin back in the beginning, but over the years, I've been continually impressed what you've accomplished. I am proud of you, and I have no doubt we can do anything we set our minds to. We are transforming the global economy. We have brought a taste of freedom and equality to far corners of the world. I know we can transform criminal justice too. And now, today, I challenge you to set your sights on the hardest problems. I challenge you to shine Bitcoin's light into the darkest places. I challenge you to set us free. I've seen several of my friends go home after years, even decades in prison. More than one overcame a life sentence. Each time it happens, I weep for joy. Seeing a person regain their freedom, seeing them reunite with their family, there's nothing like it. It's so beautiful, it hurts. It feels like a miracle. We need more miracles. I have to go soon. I don't want to go. I don't want to go back to that cell. I want to be there with you. It's called. You've done so much for me today. Talking with you today is the most freedom I've felt in a long, long time. Thank you. Thank you for giving me your attention. I will never forget this day. The memory of this day. This can never be taken from us. Okay.
This call is from a federal prison.
I'm gonna go now. Thank you. Goodbye.
Go ahead.
Holy crap, that was intense. Feel terrible for him. I don't think that crime fits the punishment, but not gonna lie, happy that he's done. Hopefully they got somebody a little less depressing coming on next.
Thank you, everybody. That was profound. It's a shame Ross isn't here to see this. But we keep building. You'll notice I changed clothes because I heard we're going to the moon. So we're going to keep building, we're going to keep doing what we do, and Honey Badger is not going to be stopped by the tyrants. And part of that is what the next panel's about, which is called Toxic Maximalism, a feature, not a bug. And for people who are new to the space,
I'm personally attacked.
the toxicity turns people off. It especially turns off people who come from the world of important people, you know, VIPs, VIP syndrome, like certain fragile authors. They come from a world that depends on who you know and who's important and who can get a meeting with the undersecretary of the economic whatever. And that's not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is 12,000 murder hornets who will attack anybody who messes with this system. And that is a much stronger system than the fragile old world of important people and VIPs. So when you see a toxic maximalist turning somebody off or turning them away, that person isn't ready for Bitcoin. That person isn't ready yet. So it's an important part of the defense mechanism for this open source project that is decentralized and owned by you, everyone in this room, and everyone outside this room. It belongs to us, and we will fight for it. And the toxic maximalists are the ultimate foundation of that fight. And so they serve a very, very important, crucial function in protecting this network. We don't need the VIPs. We don't need the important people. We need 12,000 murder hornets who've descended here on Miami. And we need the millions and millions others who are out there who know there's a better way and there's a better system. And there's a better system than the tyranny and the phony money and the Fed nonsense and all of the other games that have been robbing people for centuries. Toxic maximalists are the foundation of this, and we've got 5 of the best ones coming out right now. Nick Hoffman's going to be the moderator. BTC Lurk. Dr. Bitcoin MD, real life doctor, and Doctor of Bitcoin, Alexander Setsky. And Nico ZM.
So before we start, I think...
They do!
Before we start, I think I speak for all of us when I say I give my most sincere condolences to Ross and his family during this time. We all stand with Ross. Free Ross! So just jumping right into this now. Today we got a good panel, Toxic Maximalism, feature not a bug, and we're going to go through a quick introduction. So Lurk, introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? I'm BTC Lurk. I'm just the average pleb, nothing special.
Hi, I'm a medical doctor. I recently transitioned out of medicine to actually fix the system from the outside. And I just want to thank all the Bitcoiners who have been supporting me in my own journey. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Hey guys, I'm all the way here from Australia, of all places. Woo! Most of you will know me as Svetsky. Before I got put in the Twitter gulags, so I'm not there anymore. But I run a company called Amber, which is a Bitcoin-only dollar-cost averaging app, and I write, and I shitpost, and I run a podcast, and I tear apart anything that attempts to like fuck with Bitcoin. So.
What's up, guys? I'm Nico. I mine, and I make YouTube content, and I won't stop until every single shitcoin channel is defeated, because they are poison, and that's my mission, and I hope I accomplish it.
And I'm your moderator, Nick of Bitcoin Magazine. So let's just jump right into it. Lurk, can you explain what is Bitcoin maximalism toxicity?
Yeah, so Bitcoin maximalist toxicity is not toxic in a way, but it's more about the integrity of what people believe and what they think the network is best for.
I am a maximalist, and it is incredibly toxic, so don't listen to that.
It's what drives everybody's conviction to stand up to the big influencers who try to mess with the code or they try to do something different, and we all know that it's not right and it's not what we want, and we stand up and we fight back for kind of what we believe in. We don't take shit from anybody. We don't have to listen to what people kind of want to push for Bitcoin, because people think that they can come into the space, these big influencers.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know who any of these people are. I've never heard of them. I've never heard of this guy. People willing to go up there and say how toxic they are, I guess.
And they think that they can change Bitcoin and try to fix it and make it better. But we all know that Bitcoin fixes you. You don't fix Bitcoin. So that's kind of my thesis on Bitcoin maximalism.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. Like, some people see toxic maximalism as like a bunch of mean people who are bad for Bitcoin, but in reality, it's the complete opposite. It's really good. I see toxic maximalism as like Bitcoiners from all over the globe, from all different walks of life, really coming together for one goal, and that's hyper-Bitcoinization at all costs. So nothing else matters. Fuck your feelings. No one cares if you don't like Bitcoin. We're going to the moon, and we're ushering in hyper-Bitcoinization. So...
These people need to watch their language here. We're a family show. It's live, so there's nothing I can do about it.
So, Dr. Bitcoin, what have you seen through the years in the space that tends to cause maximalists to be toxic? Do you have any specific examples?
So I'll just speak at it from a general perspective. I think toxicity can feel mean sometimes because people don't understand where we're coming from in terms of our perspectives. So just to give you my own perspective, so when I look at something like Bitcoin, I don't just think it's another investment asset that's going to increase my profits in fiat currency. I look at it as the most important innovation in human history. I believe that it's the best tool for liberation that we've ever had, and I defend it that way. So if it comes off as toxic, I'm sorry, but it's too important to not defend. So that's why I think our perspectives, we're looking at it from different lenses. And if you don't see it from that lens, there's two things I would say. One, do your homework. Or two, that's fine. If you don't agree with it, just move on, find something else. You can shitcoin, you could do whatever you want, but don't get in our way, because if you do, you'll get stung by the cyber hornets.
So, Alex, people often...
Holy crap, this is cringe. Wow, this is cringe. They're trying to defend toxic maximalism. You don't defend it. They can say Bitcoin's the best, move on. Jeez. I am a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm not toxic. I own alts. I have probably more alts than most people can even imagine managing. You don't... I think what happens is maximalists don't see the bigger picture a lot of the time. I don't know what reason, but they don't see that this whole space is one giant organism. What's good for crypto is good for Bitcoin, even if it isn't Bitcoin. Like, Ethereum doing well, that's good for Bitcoin. Bitcoin doing well, it's good for Ethereum. They all synergize. You know, they all bring different things to the table, and I don't know what these people are on.
And say that toxic Bitcoiners are the white blood cells of Bitcoin. Can you explain how this decentralized group of cyber hornets protects Bitcoin and fights off bad actors?
Yeah, it's we're like an immune system. So when you think about Bitcoin, I mean, you guys were all here. You just watched what Ross said. I mean, for the love of Christ, we are here for something so much larger. I was in the car with Francis. I fucking love you, Francis. We were in the car yesterday, or the day before, and we were driving, and we were talking about, in a couple thousand years, humans in whatever capacity we're going to be in are going to look back on this time, or look back on history and look at what transformed us from apes into an intergalactic species, and it's going to be fire.
Disclaimer, they all are single. Surprise. Plot twist.
Bitcoin and teleportation. All the other stuff that came in between, like oil and electricity and everything, they were precursors. Nikola Tesla developed electricity for Bitcoin. That's the progression. So there is nothing more important in the world today than being able to store, transact, and sovereignly hold the product of one's labor. And when you look at the network itself, not only from a technological standpoint, but from an economic standpoint, and then from the standpoint of a network that is enforced by the individual, not by some group of rulers, we are the white blood cells of the network. We are the thing that, when external forces or an external virus of stupidity tries to come in and adjust it, we fight it off. So there's nothing.
Are they just making stuff up at this point? Legit just make it we're the white blood cells? No, you're not, man. You just, if anything, well, maybe that is a good comparison. The same way white blood cells sometimes attack the body, the host, and cause all kinds of problems.
Nothing more important than holding that line. The intolerant minority, you can't beat that. And if the center does not hold, we just become another shitcoin project. So that's where the game is. The white blood cells, the Bitcoin maximalist position. I said it earlier today. I said, I start at Bitcoin maximalism and I go into supremacism or whatever the fuck else is up the top. So I request everyone else to join that position, because there's nothing more pure and there's nothing more important in the world today.
So Nico, is toxic Bitcoin maximalism, does that drive away people? If it does, is it good? Is it bad? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah.
Look, the way that I see it, it's necessary, right? And why do I mean it's necessary? Let's look back in the last 3 months, what happened, right? We had Charlie Munger.
Real quick here, we're doing a little unusual stream for anybody joining us. Usually we're just doing TA. There's nothing going on. Nothing's really moving. T-Fuel moving a little bit. New all-time highs in Bitcoin pair. Not a lot else. This is the Bitcoin Miami conference. We're just listening to it, giving feedback, reaction style. It is live, so I do apologize for any of their language or whatever they say. These people are cringy as anything. But just because we're having a different type stream today doesn't mean that you shouldn't hit that like button and subscribe. Please hit it. Hit that like button. Discord links top of the chat. Likes still matter. Appreciate you guys.
Who had the audacity to call Bitcoin disgusting, and he said it was the wrong step for human civilization. Meanwhile, I'm talking to Venezuelans that are buying Bitcoin, not like we buy Bitcoin here in the West for number go up technology. They're buying it to survive, right? Then you have Marathon or Marapool, right? That recently, because of the toxicity of Bitcoin maximalists, right? I think we played a role in them changing their course, right? Because essentially what they were doing is attacking Bitcoin with their clean blocks and OFAC compliant blocks, and they weren't signaling for Taproot. So I believe that if toxicity wasn't a thing, there would be no pressure on them. And last but not least, of course, there's Elon, right? Who goes to his millions of followers and just tells them Doge. And remember, these people, they don't have any experience, so he's funneling him in the right direction.
Yeah, Bitcoin doesn't like these dudes.
Every single one of Elon's tweets, and man, you just see a bunch of Bitcoiners going at him. And
oh my God. BTC Miami, this is a live streamed call to you. Who are these people? Why didn't you invite me? I would do way better.
There's no other way, right? So not only do I think Bitcoin toxicity is important, I think it's absolutely necessary. And if you're against Bitcoin toxicity, you're against Bitcoin. And if you're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom, period.
one of the only things I agree with they've said so far. If you are against Bitcoin, you are against freedom. Bitcoin is freedom. That's just big facts.
So when most people come into the Bitcoin space, they initially, they see all the flashy coins, they see shitcoin 1, 2, and 3 popping off, doing, huge gains. They're being shilled.
Listen to this guy. This is the fact.
This coin can do this, it can do that. When you hold a shitcoin, over time, it trends to 0 against Bitcoin. And I just wanted to ask you, Lurk, do you believe Bitcoin maximalism from the very start saves people money, but also time to do other stuff?
All right, so what the point they're getting at here makes sense, and I agree with this, is when new people enter the space, they are very commonly deceived by projects. SafeMoon, I don't know that much about SafeMoon, but comes to mind. XRP comes to mind. So the point I think they're trying to make with no elegance here is that toxic maximalism is in order to direct new investors. I mean, I think that's BS in the sense of none of these dudes, that's their reasoning. Their reasoning is they don't like the attentions off Bitcoin. I mean, I can feel that a little bit, but...
Yeah, I think that, buying Bitcoin is bringing back time in your life, because what you're doing is you're saving up for what everyone wants to do in life, is to retire, and they want to live off the money that they've saved up and that they've put forward on the work that they've done. And getting back time in your life is buying Bitcoin. And when you go down the rabbit hole of the shit coins and you get lost and you listen to all the noise that goes on out there and all these big influencers trying to pump their own bags, that's when you lose sight of what you really were focusing on and trying to get back time in your life from working the everyday 8 to 5 job. And later on, you will be rewarded if you stick to the system and you stick to just stacking sats and not shitcoins. And it's that simple. And
stacking sats, that's the good point. That's about it.
people just need to kind of realize that it's a slippery slope once you start, and then you really can't stop it until you really do end up wrecked. And that's where everyone realizes that shitcoins are not worth anything, and Bitcoin is the true #1 leading factor in civilization and freedom.
Who are these people?
So there's a lot of talk about, like,
Purity Day. That's what I'm saying. Invite me.
Like the Bitcoin purity test.
I'll bring the
like,
charisma.
What actions do you have to take to pass the Bitcoin purity test? And everyone has their own, different, definitions of it, as you would say. But Dr. Bitcoin, I want to ask you, what do you think passes, the quote-unquote toxic maximalist Bitcoin purity test?
I think this is a tough question to answer because everyone is at a different stage of their journey in terms of understanding what Bitcoin is and the second and third order effects.
So I'll pause it here. Bitcoin maximalism. Some of you, I'm sure most of you know what it is, but if anyone doesn't, it's essentially kind of like an elitist group in crypto where they tend to blame all the problems on altcoins and believe that people should only invest in Bitcoin. I myself am a maximalist, however, I don't really subscribe to any of that train of thought. I believe this for your financial well-being. If you're in crypto, I think you should have a majority in Bitcoin. It's the most stable coin. It's going to help smooth your portfolio out. But I don't believe that you're a bad person or you're dumb or whatever just because you have altcoins. I have tons of altcoins. I use them. I trade them against Bitcoin to get more Bitcoin. The guy before was saying stack sats. How do you stack sats really without trading altcoins via Bitcoin? You can DCA, buy more, but like, what? I don't get it. I don't get these people.
So I think my approach changes based on who I'm dealing with. If it's a newcomer who's asking questions, or even if they get involved in shitcoins and buying and trading and doing all that, I think it's best to take it from the point of being patient.
I don't have any of the lights on.
Bitcoiners
That's why I look
themselves have also
really,
been
really
on
pale.
that journey So it's important to share your information, share these resources, help them understand why certain reasonings like, oh, Bitcoin's too slow, you explain why it's the way it is because of proof of work, validating transactions, and so on and so forth, and you can address that with various different issues. Now, the way that Bitcoin toxic maximalism really plays out is when it comes to big names and institutions who have all the fiat wealth working in the old system and are also have all the resources possible in terms of learning. They can contact anyone they'd like, reach out to any major CEO of any company or any major player in the Bitcoin space to get this type of information. So when these people are the ones that actually put out misinformation or spread things about other coins, then that becomes a problem, and I think that's when Bitcoiners really rally around. And I'd just like to say something. So I've spent a couple days biding my time, watching a lot of clowns in blazers up here talk about garbage, KYC, AML, ESG. Let me say something. Bitcoin does not care about you. It doesn't care. It's not going to change based on your opinions, based on your experience in the fiat world, based on how much you schmooze a politician or how much you schmooze regulators. It's there. It will survive. It will never care about you. And you are going to be you have to be the one that's going to change, because it's not going to change. It's rules with no rulers. Play the game or get the fuck out.
But I'm a billionaire, bro. I don't care. I don't need Bitcoin.
Have fun staying poor.
I will.
Yeah. So Alex, not too long ago, the president of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, she came out and she said some stuff about Bitcoin, and she was saying that Bitcoin needs really strict regulation because, quote unquote, if there is an escape hatch, that escape will be used. And meaning that if Bitcoin is an escape from the current financial system, people like us, people like everyone else, they are going to use it to escape the corrupt financial system. It seems, you know, that the freedom that Bitcoin provides is that escape from that system where they have the monopoly on money. I know Bitcoiners are willing to fight to the bitter end for this, to break their shackles of fiat and just get away from it. I see like the toxic maximalists as defending the last bastion of freedom we still have in this world with Bitcoin. I see it as it's either Bitcoin. I mean, over the past year, you've all seen what's been going on in the world, and I see it's either Bitcoin or it's communism. Like, there's no in between. So, how important is defending Bitcoin from the toxic fiat maximalists like Janet Yellen, Jerome Powell, and everyone else who wants to destroy it?
All our little friends, huh? The line that will define those who are free and those in the modern gulags is going to be those who hold Bitcoin and those who do not. It's as simple as that. Like, if you're stuck with a government form of currency, where I don't think people realize that money represents human action. It's the most fundamental level of speech. Like, we all talk about, you know, we're freedom of speech maximalists, but more...
That's true, though. Money is speech. 100%.
More important is your action. Like, you don't tell me, I don't care what you say, show me your bank account and I'll tell you what you believe. And when an institution, when an organization can issue, manage, and dictate what you can and cannot do with your money, which is where central bank digital currencies are going, by the way, which is what, you know, all our friends like Jerome and Christine would like to... Fuck the Fed, that's right, brother. Fuck the Fed and fuck all of them.
Chill and swear.
What they want is complete control of your action, because they think you're all ants They think you're all worthless. They think you don't matter. They think that they know what's better for you than you do for yourself. And when we give them the ability to direct where our human action goes, when they can just turn off your bank account because you have an opinion other than what theirs is, that's the ultimate gulag. That was like Hitler's, Stalin, Mao's dream. And these idiots, these morons, are doing it under the guise of we're all in this together, we all have to help each other, all this other bullshit that they try and feed you on TV. Like, it's that system, or it's Bitcoin where you get to choose what the fuck you want to do with your own life. And that's as simple as it gets. So, fuck it, I'll finish there. Let's go to you.
Yeah, get rid of this guy, God.
So, Nico, I got to ask you, and this is kind of going off the last question I asked you, but, you know, people say toxicity scares off pre-coiners. I kind of see it as, like, it scares off the people who just, like, aren't fully convicted yet. But you run Simply Bitcoin, a YouTube show where you cover the daily news every single day. A lot of pre-coiners watch your show, and they get orange-pilled through your show. And you and your co-host, Phil Koinicaris, you guys are toxic on that show. You know, how has toxicity been beneficial in that aspect?
Yeah, so when we started Simply Bitcoin, me and Phil always had this, you know, we will have no masters, right? We will not take sponsors from people, from companies that we don't use ourselves, that we don't agree with. We will not be bought. And that was so important.
I hit the bathroom.
Another aspect of Simply Bitcoin, which I think resonates with a lot of people, right, is, look, the shitcoin channels do something really well, right? They do the thumbnails and the clickbait, they do it super well. So we thought with Simply Bitcoin, instead of speculating on the price and all that garbage that they talk about, right, we'll keep the clickbait, we'll create the thumbnails like the shitcoin channels, but when you tune into Simply Bitcoin, all you're getting is signal, right? That's what we try to do, that's what we're gonna keep doing, and we're not gonna stop until those shitcoin channels fucking die, period.
What is their obsession with these channels? I don't get it.
So we're just about out of time, and before we leave, I just want to say, sound money it should be a human right. Don't settle for anything less. Bitcoin only, and let's fucking go.
Let's run this shit.
All right, everybody. Wow, what a crowd. You definitely are going to want to stick around for this panel and after. Just take my word on that one. So, in a Bitcoin world, not just money will change, everything else will change. The whole way that our world works is going to change, and part of that is obviously exchanges. So this next panel is going to talk about the evolution of exchanges and how we can expect changes in exchanges for, that's a mouthful, huh? Changes in exchanges for the Bitcoin world. So we got some of my great friends and some excellent panelists on this next one. Caitlin Long, CEO of Avante, a bank in Wyoming. She has a bank charter, longtime Bitcoiner, longtime friend. Sam Bankman-Fried, CEO of XTX. Has Sam crushed it or what? Yanni Asia, who is co-founder and CEO of eToro. And my very good friend, and hopefully someday President of the United States, although I don't think he's going to run, Eric Voorhees, CEO of Shapeshift. Thank you.
All right. Looks like you guys can hear me. So before we begin, did I hear someone in that prior panel say, if you're...
Eric Voorhees, he is a real, we want to listen to him. He's a real crypto dude. Not a Well, he's probably crazy like we all are, but
Against toxic maximalism, you were against Bitcoin, and you were against freedom.
freedom haters.
Yeah, that's some
Everybody
bullshit.
hates freedom. Just so you guys know, in 5 minutes they're supposed to have a big announcement, so we'll see what it is.
All right, we got him warmed up. Okay, good to be here with you all. We are going to talk about exchange. The only purpose of a good money is if you can exchange it at some point with something else. And a lot of companies have risen.
ATAC Doar, that is an amazing point, my friend. They're for free speech, but then they're not for other coins. Wouldn't that, if they're saying money is speech, then aren't altcoins then also speech, and isn't that free speech? That's a really sharp point, man. Good job. Well done.
Have fallen, have collapsed, have exploded, have made gazillion dollars building the exchange services that we all use. So we're going to talk about that and what it looks like going into the future. And real quick, I want to start with each of you telling me very quickly what your company does, why it's cool, and why you got involved with Bitcoin from a first principles perspective, right? So keep it to 30 seconds each on this.
Nobody knows who any of those people were. I've never heard of any of them.
The largest social trading network in the world with 20 million registered users who can trade cryptocurrencies alongside commission-free stock trading in a social network where everybody can see, follow, and automatically copy the most successful investors. So it's cool because you don't need to understand how to trade. You can simply copy the best. That's how I succeeded in high school. What brought me to Bitcoin, so we founded eToro pre-Bitcoin in 2007. I started writing about electronic money post-financial crisis 2008. And then when I saw Bitcoin in 2010 and started buying and paying people in Bitcoin talk, I just fell in love with the technology, similar to how I fell in love in the stock markets and in the internet when I was young.
Cool, great. Sam?
Yeah, FTX, a global crypto exchange.
Yes, I'm Sam.
We're...
Hello. Hello, I'm Sam.
One of the bigger ones, not the biggest yet. We have a bunch of different products, and you know, I think one of the coolest things about watching it grow over the last few years has been just watching the rate at which sort of our team's been able to roll things out. You know, there will be times when we'll see a bunch of demand pop up on Twitter for a product and hope to have it live that night. And sometimes we make it. Anyway, great to be here. And I originally got into crypto just as a trader, because it seemed like a good area to be in. But it wasn't until I attempted to get a bank account while in crypto that I started to learn why maybe there was some impetus to try out a new financial set of rails.
People love him, apparently.
And hey, Caitlin Long from Wyoming, all things Wyoming. And thank you. And I'm not an exchange. Avanti Bank is a bank. It is designed
Craig
to fix
Wright
some of
is
the
not
problems that
Satoshi.
Sam just talked about. We are a chartered bank, but we are not yet operating. Should be soon.
I know, I
And,
voice shamed him. His
doing
voice was
the
funny.
Hard work of getting integrated into the Federal Reserve. So we
Unlike
have
me.
a native company from this industry that has direct connectivity to the Federal Reserve. Stay tuned, hopefully soon. And got into Bitcoin because during the financial crisis, I understood the settlement problems that were happening on Wall Street were part of the cause of the financial crisis, and that this technology can solve that.
All right. So we're going to go with that topic for a second. We are at the point now where some exchanges are quite literally becoming banks. I believe Kraken is now a bank.
True, that's a big deal.
Coinbase is pretty damn close to being a bank if they're not one already. Is this is to you, Caitlin, is this a progression or is this a regression?
Thank you,
It's
sir.
a progression because
I know.
the big problem
Me and Craig
why
always disagree.
US dollar payments get hung up in the crypto industry is that the dollar does not settle on the same speed and finality terms as crypto. And that's why stablecoins were invented, precisely to match the speed and finality terms of crypto. But even stablecoins are still indirectly connected to the Federal Reserve. Somebody is still processing those US dollar payments. And let's face it, we're still seeing banks closing accounts for legitimate companies in this industry. And somebody needed to go directly to the Fed and make the case and lay out exactly how you plug this technology into the payment system without potentially blowing it up.
CFTC coin.
And one of the challenges, of course, is that digital assets settle on a very quick settlement cycle relative to US dollars. And the impact of that is, let's say, for example, if there had been, if the accidental fork in Ethereum in November had lasted more than a couple of hours, and you had to actually have a mass redemption of the ERC20 stablecoins that were issued on the fork that did not become the longest chain. At the time, we were, what, 20 billion or so of stablecoin assets. The US dollar banking system would have been able to handle a sudden withdrawal within minutes or hours of 20 billion. We're now at, what, 90 billion in stablecoin assets? And a sudden withdrawal of that, if you have an accidental fork that no one was expecting, starts to become a place where you can have some financial risk enter into the system. And those are the sorts of things that we're solving and working, doing the hard work of working with traditional financial services regulators on these exact issues.
I like that lady. She's the first smart person we've heard talk the entire time.
So this one is to Sam. So there is a saying in finance that liquidity begets liquidity. And traders will thus go where the volume is, which begets more trading. And this would suggest that the Bitcoin exchange market should tend to consolidate, that you would tend to get a consolidation of liquidity into one or a few large exchanges. And yet we empirically have seen the opposite of this over Bitcoin's history. There are more Bitcoin exchanges today than ever before. Why has there not been a clear winner-take-all in the Bitcoin exchange market thus far?
So I'm going to actually partially disagree with that. There has not been a clear winner-takes-all, but if you graph percentage of volume over time by exchange, you can see really clear trends. And especially over the last 3 or so years, there has been a ton of consolidation. The space is done so well that even the shrinking exchanges are still doing well. They're not shutting down. So you don't see an increase in the number of exchanges, but you are starting to see an increase in the concentration of volume in the top 5 or so exchanges. You know, something like 75% of global volume is trading in the top 5 exchanges. And so there is a very long tail, but you're definitely seeing consolidation there. One thing I will tack on to that, though, is the localization of the fiat ramps. And, you know, Avanti's doing a ton of work, as are a number of other people, in trying to make, you know, the US financial system plug in a much cleaner way with the crypto economy. But there's 200 jurisdictions in the world, and there are lots of different currencies, and each one of those involves, you know, its own lengthy, distinct process that you need to repeat. And so what you see, you know, and that's one side of this, there's localization, language barriers, culture, and because of that, you do see a bunch of regional exchanges. And there are some exchanges that are doing phenomenally well, just focusing on one jurisdiction. So you do still see some spread out activity based on, you know, you see Upbit, Bithumb, others in Korea, right? You see Bitflyer, Bitbank, and others in Japan. So you still do see a bunch of very successful regional exchanges, which diversify a little bit. But if you look at the global landscape or the Western landscape, there actually has been quite a bit of consolidation over the last 3 years or so.
Okay. And this one also is to you, Sam. So DEXs are obviously a hot topic. According to CoinGecko recently, DEXs are about 5% of trade volume, something around that, and it was definitely less
Very
than
new.
4% about a year ago.
0%.
What do you see currently today as the relationship between the centralized Bitcoin exchanges and these decentralized exchanges, which are growing very rapidly?
Where is the big announcement? It's 420, blaze it. Said 415.
And maybe mention a little bit about FTX.
Yeah, Folsom, imagine if Bitcoin was at an all-time high right now rallying. This would be, there wouldn't even be talking. They would just be like partying. Euphoria orgy.
And also the decentralized product that you guys are building.
Yeah, so, there's been really big growth in DEXs, but it hasn't gotten to the scale of centralized exchanges yet. So you don't currently see a very strong competing effect. Right now, they're mostly filling different use cases. I actually don't think long-term that they're going to be completely in competition with each other. There are uses for one, there are uses for the other. The idea of having an entire industry, a business and application running natively on a blockchain is really exciting. And you get this really great composability and kind of Cambrian explosion of apps from it. And so I think that's really exciting. Don't take that, though, as a statement that all current DEXs are perfect. I think that is very far from the truth. And I think some people will say, hey, the DEXs are about to overtake the banks, they better watch out. Anyone from traditional finance who tries to use a current DEX will know that's not true. Will know that we have a long way to go before everything from the user experience, the regulatory structure, the UI, the speed, the throughput, the cost of DEXs gets to the point where it can sort of meet mass demand. But even beyond that, they're never going to be the highest throughput things in the world. You have this fundamental speed of light constraint, among other things. It takes 100 milliseconds for light to get around the world. You can't have latency of a nanosecond on a DEX, no matter what you do, not if you actually want a geographically distributed consensus. And so because of this, there's a bunch of activity that is never really going to make sense on DEXs. And so I do think that there's separate areas for them. But when you do look at the DEX space, what are some of the advantages? Anyone who's tried to take two centralized businesses and glue them together has probably more than a few gray hairs on their head. And anyone who's done that with two decentralized products might or might not have a few gray hairs on their head, but there's a hope it went well. And it's one of the beautiful things about using sort of compatible protocols is that you can glue them to each other. They can be completely permissionless. You can prove exactly what they will do. You don't have to worry about counterparty risk in the same way with the DEX. So I do think that there's really, really huge upside as that industry continues to build out. I think something that we've been thinking about is just, FTX is not a DEX. It's not a decentralized product, and that's not what it's meant to be. We're trying to build the best centralized exchange we can. But separately, we've been active in the DeFi ecosystem, in the Solana ecosystem, especially because we do think that's another huge area. And I mean, I think everyone's sort of heard me say this multiple times, but I think throughput. When you're talking about trying to put an exchange on a blockchain, you need to have the throughput, the TPS that an exchange uses. If you want it to get huge, you need to scale up to hundreds of thousands to millions of TPS.
Thanks. Yoni. So I've known you for many years, and eToro got started pre-Bitcoin. Tell us a little bit about how, your journey with Bitcoin and how you ultimately got eToro involved in Bitcoin trading and what that was like. Like, what tipped the scale there?
I've been personally passionate about Bitcoin. We bought some Bitcoin in 2011 for the company, had a lot of arguments with some of my investors regarding whether Bitcoin makes sense or not. And then perfect timing, we launched Bitcoin on eToro in 2013, a month before Mt. Gox collapsed. And then for about 4 years, really only about 1% of eToro customers bought Bitcoin. And in the crypto rally of 2017, at the end of the year, we were at 90% of eToro users own crypto. So today, the majority of eToro clients own both equities and crypto. We believe that most millennials are going to own Bitcoin and crypto assets as part of their investment strategy. So our view is very much an investment view of this ecosystem, in addition to the fact that we're big believers in blockchain, DeFi, etc., but it's going to be still hard to figure out how to glue DeFi and centralized regulated entities.
And one question I'm curious about is, with you and your large retail user base, what percentage of them, if you're willing to share, do you believe own Bitcoin because they understand what it's doing, why it's powerful, why it's important, how it's changing the world, versus those who are buying it because they want the number to go up, right? So it's obviously a mix of both. Do you have a sense of what portion of them are, you know, let's call it sophisticated in their understanding of why Bitcoin exists?
I would generally say most of Bitcoin investors are investing because they believe or understand something. That doesn't mean they're proficient in Bitcoin. I would say that the majority, a significant part of our customers have never transacted an on-chain transaction, which is, by the way, complex for a lot of people out there. I assume here in the room, everybody can use their ledgers and Trezors and do on-chain transactions, but most people find it actually difficult to do on-chain transactions. So we simplify that to a lot of people. Therefore, a lot of them won't necessarily understand how blockchain technology works, which is why also we developed the Good Dollar project to help people understand how that works as well. So I think a lot of people are investing in it because they believe in the macro crypto asset as a hedge against governments, as a deflationary asset, and that's why they're investing.
Cool. All right, so one of the things that bothers me about Bitcoin's development is that it is the greatest decentralized system that mankind has ever built, and yet it has this profound centralization in terms of the exchanges, right? We have this huge centralization risk. And no one has really solved that. It's kind of one of the major flaws in how Bitcoin has developed so far. Caitlin, do you see this getting better? Is this something that can be solved? And if so, how? Is this always going to be a giant pockmark that we have to deal with?
I'm optimistic about DEXs because that does actually keep with the decentralization ethos. There have been I guess if I step back, the way I would lay it out is we're making some of the same mistakes that the traditional financial services industry made. The reason why we don't like traditional financial services companies generally in this industry is because of the information asymmetry, where the traditional financial services company is the holder of the information, and you cannot have perfect markets if you don't have perfect information. And the intermediaries in this industry are not doing proof of reserves. They're not voluntarily disclosing their financial statements so you can understand the counterparty risk associated with them. And they're not disclosing the probability of losses on the products that they're offering. And in some cases, with 100 to 1, 125 to 1 leveraged futures contracts, the probability of loss is in the high 90 percentile. And would people actually trade those if they knew that they were virtually guaranteed to lose money? I think there are probably a lot of innocent people who are way beyond their skis, and if we actually disclosed that information, you may see a lot fewer people losing money.
Well said. And tell us a little bit about Avanti and its commitment to being full reserve and what that means as a bank. And do you believe that other banks might follow your lead, or do you look totally weird to them?
A lot of this really stems from the ethos of Bitcoin. Satoshi gave us money that isn't debt. And philosophically, why would you put debt on something? I like to use the phrase, a fool and their leveraged Bitcoin are soon parted. Again, a fool and their leveraged Bitcoin are soon parted. And the excesses that we've seen in this bull market are coming from a lot of leverage that didn't happen in the previous bull market, right? We had the ICO issue in the previous bull market. This bull market, it's leverage, right? We've seen more volatility. And one of the big issues with that is that even those of us who are not leveraged have the downside of the fact that the price is more volatile precisely because of the running of stops in these leveraged drawdowns, which we've just seen over the last month. It increases the cost of capital for everybody in the industry when Bitcoin's price is more volatile as a result of the impact of leverage moving it around. Avanti is fundamentally committed to not using leverage. And if you're interested in understanding why, philosophically, I really would encourage you to go read Mises. Go understand the difference between commodity credit and circulation credit. Commodity credit is absolutely fine. It's not leverage. Going one-to-one leverage is fine. Anything that is circulation credit that goes above 1 times leverage, in other words, certainly 100-to-1 leverage is is 99% circulation credit, right? That is creating claims to the underlying out of thin air. It is fractional reserve banking. And we are fundamentally committed to not doing that. It is ultimately a commitment to solvency instead of liquidity. And what we've seen in this bull market is a lot of folks are obsessed with liquidity. Satoshi didn't create anything that was designed to be leveraged and really didn't care about liquidity. One of the biggest takeaways that I have from this conference is what Nick Szabo said yesterday, when he said liquidity is a nice to have for a store of value, but not a necessity. You need to be able to use it when you need it, but do we need all this daily liquidity that's driven by trading? Go back and listen to Nick's speech and go read your Mises and learn about circulation credit.
Sam, do you agree?
I mean, I agree with parts. I think not with a lot of it. I guess it's not shocking. I have a
Tell
bunch
us
of
specifically
thoughts on
about leverage from your perspective on
Yeah.
this topic. Yeah.
So one thing I just want to say is that I think a lot gets blamed on 100x leverage, and I think it's sort of exaggerated. 100x leverage is not very important for any parts of the crypto industry right now. It's a tiny fraction of even the exchanges that have it, and it's not what causes the volatility that you see. The sizes that get liquidated on those positions are tiny. It's not what drives the big moves. The big moves are driven by big positions. And when you're talking about big positions, you're talking about low or no leverage. Leverage does absolutely play a role in it, but you're talking 3x, 5x leverage, not 100x leverage. 99% of the positions are in that lower range. Again, not trying to say leverage doesn't play a role in it, just that I think this sort of discussion about very high leverage is mostly a red herring. I do think there's a legitimate point about the volatility caused by leverage. It does cause volatility. That is undeniable. Liquidations cause leverage. I think that there's this side point people make about losing money because of that, and a lot of people have lost, and you should absolutely never put on a leverage position with more money than you are comfortable losing, because you might lose it, especially in a volatile market. That having been said, there's a difference between mean and median here, which I think is getting swept under the rug, right? And this is the same Petersburg's paradox, right? Where you could have a strategy that has completely decoupled probability of ending up above zero and expected value of net return. And the expected value is ultimately the more important concept there. Now, that's not to say you're not negative EV if you're doing 100x leverage, but you have to go further than just talking about probability of loss, right? If you have a 10% probability of 10xing and a 90% probability of going to zero, that's not a negative EV position to have on, right? And that's absolutely not something that you should do with a greater amount of funds that you're willing to lose. But that's not, doing that with 10% of your funds as collateral is not different than putting 100% of your funds in at 1x leverage, right? In fact, it's probably lower downside risk in some ways. And so if you reframe this from thinking about putting on too big of a position to not having to place as much of your capital at risk in order to put on the same size position, it changes the perspective on it a little bit. Again, not trying to say leverage doesn't play a role in this, just I think it's a lot more nuanced than that. I'll just say one last thing, which is, look, you can take the position leverage is bad. I don't believe that, but one could believe that. It's not a crazy thing to think. However, were you to think that, I think you'd probably also have to be willing to sacrifice more than most people realize in order to get there. I think you have had to sacrifice the majority of the growth that the industry has had to date if you're to make that trade, and that might be worth it, right? If you think that it is very bad to have leverage in the system, that might be a trade-off worth having. But you can't just look at the drop from 60K to 40K and blame it on leverage without remembering that the run-up from 10K to 60K involved leverage as well.
Absolutely,
And
it did,
we ended up higher than we started. And so just think about what you're throwing out, you know, with the bad parts. You know, think about the collateral damage.
Well said. All right. So we just have a few moments here. I want to throw up a softball question that any of you can take. Are exchanges at risk of evolving into just another tool of state surveillance? What can be done to prevent that? And do we, as builders of exchanges, have a moral obligation to protect user privacy?
And so the question is about them becoming just like instruments of states to, you know, I think that like one thing I'll say is some absolutely will. There's nothing we can do that will make it the case that no exchanges are going to become effectively nationalized. We are already seeing it with some exchanges. There's nationalization going on with some of them. What can we do to combat that? First of all, have multiple exchanges, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Even if one gets quite large, have others on standby so that you can move to one that you feel comfortable with if you cease to become comfortable with one of the current ones. I think that's just a key piece of this. And I think that's one of the problems that you see with the traditional financial ecosystem is that there's this extremely closely guarded ability to move a US dollar around, right? You can't hold your own dollar and send it yourself to someone. You have to rely on an extremely closely guarded list of ultimate counterparties to do that.
Yep.
And that means that you can't have a competing system to moving dollars around that tries to do it in a more efficient way or in a way that one feels more comfortable with. And I think that's one of the core problems is that you can't have an alternative to some pieces of the existing system. That's where all the pain comes from. And I think that our strength as an industry is the fact that we can build so many copies of this and we can have so many independent sources of exchangeability that people have choice.
All right. We've got to wrap it up there, guys. Thank you for joining me on stage today.
Thank you.
And thank you all for caring about Bitcoin. Appreciate it.
Well, that was way better. That was a way better panel. I don't know if they have another one. They're supposed to be doing this announcement. That was, well, it's 4:40 East now. It's supposed to be at 4:15. Maybe they're still going to do it. Next up, one small step for Bitcoin, one giant leap for mankind. Maybe that's it. We'll see. It's actually kind of convenient that they're doing this because nothing is happening. Like, the market is exactly where it was yesterday. At least we got something to watch, listen to.
Don't leave yet. You're going to want to be here. We are making history. We've got something very special coming up. What a great energy in this crowd. How have you liked the conference, huh? The best big...
Oh, God, you can get the camera on for this. You can tell this is going to be a nothing announcement by how much they're hyping this up. Sorry, guys, but I mean, I'm still going to sit here and wait for it. You can tell.
Bitcoin conference ever. This will be one for the history books. It's going to be one to remember. It's like San Jose 2013. One for the history books. So without further ado, Jack Mallers is going to come out and make an announcement that's important. It's The title is One Small Step for Bitcoin, One Giant Leap for Mankind. Jack Mallers, everybody.
All right. We ready? Sit. Fuck yeah. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Yo.
Let's go.
You guys ready for this?
Yeah, let's go. Make the freaking announcement.
Rhetorical question. There's no fucking way. There's no way. I promise you. One small step for Bitcoin, one giant leap for mankind. I promise. I promise. So today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin for countries.
I have an announcement. I have an announcement that they're going to announce. I don't know who this is. Never seen him.
Freedom and financial inclusion that Bitcoin for countries brings.
Probably their guide. They're trying to make like relatable.
So the Federal Reserve. Anyone know what that is? We're seeing unprecedented amount of monetary expansion from central banks right now. It's very scary. The far right side of this chart should scare everyone in the room, no matter where you live. And inflation is not distributed equally, right?
There's no chart, by the way.
The fact
There
that
we go.
this is supposed to be inflation, we all know in this room,
Just the inflation
is
chart.
bullshit. This chart shows no inflation. This chart tells me that inflation, aside from this chart, what does this
There will
chart
be
tell me?
punch
There's a
and
problem.
pie.
This chart tells me there's no problem. That the CPI, the Consumer Price Index,
So the
defines
Federal
no
Reserve,
inflation.
am I
Inflation
right?
should never realistically exceed 4%. However, things that we all enjoy in life, that we strive for, that we want to obtain, that we work hard for, that we sacrifice and save so that our kids can go to, like a college tuition. Then explain this. What's this? University tuition is averaging about 8% year-over-year inflation. That's, I don't know, mathematician, that's bigger than 4.
Wow, this guy is so smart and has so many unique things to say.
Right? What about this? I was born and raised in Chicago. I want to have a family someday. I want that family to have a house that I own.
Actually, the sound's
It's my
coming from
property.
here.
Well, after COVID and the stimulus shock, Chicago real estate is at 9.2% inflation year over year. So unless I'm getting a 10% raise every single year, I got no fucking chance of owning a house. But there's no inflation. Central banks are increasingly taking actions that may cause harm to the economic stability of developing countries and emerging markets. This is a huge deal and a huge, huge problem. The large-scale printing of dollars by the Federal Reserve has an unintended spillover that's drastically impacting the quality of life of those less privileged and those that need help in developing and emerging markets.
8 is
And we're
bigger than
facing
4.
unprecedented
Applause,
times.
applause.
Check all the data you want that we haven't seen for a century.
Am I right? Am I right?
Hidden inflation causes rising rates and it crushes emerging markets.
Inflation bad. Very bad.
The kid I went to high
Bad.
school with is going to lean over a bar in Manhattan and drink a $35 old fashioned and tell me Bitcoin doesn't matter? Privileged fucking asshole.
Well, that's probably not inflation, to be fair.
This is real, and it's happened, and it's happening now, and it's really scary.
Yeah, dude, there's no now.
For those of
I
you-
hate to say it, guys, but I totally called it. Like, clearly it's nothing.
That aren't from the US, aren't from Europe, aren't from the UK, live in a developed world, you're tremendously scared. The effects from major country policies will hit emerging countries economically and financially, both. And it's a huge, huge problem. It's a huge problem. Bitcoin fixes this. Bitcoin fixes this. We now have an asset class that has a fixed supply, and the issuance of that is known. It was known when the asset was issued first. The monetary policy is set and protected by a distributed network. There's no central point of failure in this asset. It's open, it's global, it's permissionless. It works the same in a country that's in the developed world as it does in New York City. This network carries no bias. It improves things like remittance, because a lot of the GDP of this developed world is sending money back home. It lowers transaction costs and ultimately improves transaction scalability and financial inclusivity. And so I founded this company called Strike. You may know it, you may not. But the whole thesis behind the company is to take advantage that Bitcoin fixes this. We want to make cross-border payments free. I didn't launch in Europe yet. I want to make cross-border payments free to solve the remittance problem and the financial inclusivity problem and the absolute mess that the Federal Reserve is causing to those that need it most. El Salvador is a great example. It's a country that uses the dollar because in a civil war they lost their own currency. It's a country where over 20% of the GDP is inbound remittance. It's how capital is influx into the economy. However, of that GDP, fees can be upwards to 50%. And the true crime is that there's over 2 million Salvadorians that live in the United States. And people are leaving because of the economic instability and the lack of economic support.
Smash the like button if this guy's a
The lack of
douchebag.
economic opportunity.
See, million
What that
likes
does
right
is
away.
it causes individuals to rely on crime and violence, and it ruins the security of the country. And it's generated a tremendous immigration problem. But if you rewind those steps, if you can fix the money, you can fix the world. If we can provide economic stability, economic opportunity, financial inclusion, and if we can build an asset that is defended by an open distributed network, and we have cyber hornets that will fight on that hill and die on that hill and protect it, and we can fix that, then they won't have to resort to crime and violence. They won't be subject to the intermediary financial system that's taking 50% of their remittance. They won't have immigration problems, and they can love the country that they were born in. And I remember we built the first MVP, and my CBO, who's the most successful guy, he's so smart, it's like, all right, let's launch in Europe.
If the announcement is that Salvador did make Bitcoin legal tender, that actually would be pretty big news, but I got a feeling that's like this guy's company is moving to Europe. We'll see.
And I was like, you're out of your mind, man. I got to go to El Salvador. That's what this is all about. This is all about helping those that need it. I'll beat TransferWise later. And I went. And I lived there. I lived there for almost 3 months. Sorry. I tried to collect a remittance payment. I couldn't do it. The ATM didn't work. It was a lot of dirt roads, and it was sad. It just wasn't a lot of hope. I gave talks. I talked to the kids. I told them, man, we got this. Bitcoin's here. We got this. And I'll tell one story. There's a guy named Chimbera, and I spent a few days with them. It was my first week there. He sat me down, and he said, you know, my grandfather was a fisherman, and my dad was a fisherman, and I thought I was going to be a fisherman. I'm not like you. You got a Chase bank account. You get a debit card. I fish. Nothing more, nothing less. Until Bitcoin, man. Like, I got hope. I scan the same QR codes you do. When Bitcoin goes up 10%, Michael Saylor makes a lot of money. So do I. So do I. Chimbera's never had a bank account, but he's got a Bitcoin wallet. Chimbera's never had a savings account, but he's got a hardware wallet. Chimbera saw that this is financial inclusion, that this is a network and a monetary system that doesn't hold any bias, and there's no intermediary that could tell him that he's not allowed. And we did something amazing here. And we were onboarding 20,000 Salvadorans a day, and most of them didn't have bank accounts. And boy, the remittance was free. Remittance was instant. Lightning Network works, man. The Lightning Network works. And in real time, we were improving the GDP of the country. And so then I got a message on behalf of the president of the country. And he wanted to talk. And I called my dad. Just gonna piss my pants. But we talked. This guy's name is Yusuf. And we talked about life. We talked about anime. Talked about how to provide a high quality of life to everyone in the world, about financial inclusivity, about human freedoms and where we lost them and how we can reinstill them. We talked about the world we want to live in and the fact that we build the tools that shape the world that we end up living in. And I met more of the government. And I became friends with the security guards. It's a big rifle. And they dropped some really heavy stuff on me. Over 70% of the active population in El Salvador doesn't have a bank account. They're not in the financial system. They had a huge problem of financial inclusivity and providing their citizens with basic human freedom. And so they asked me to help write a bill, and that they viewed Bitcoin as a world-class currency, and that we needed to put together a Bitcoin plan to help these people and give them hope, and give them a quality of life, and that you can live where you're born in, you don't have to leave, and when you send money home, they're not going to take fucking half of it. And I worked really hard, and I lived there, and I got to know the community, and I made friends that I hope will be at my wedding someday. And so with all that being said, I'd like to invite now someone I've spent some time with to share a message.
My name is Nayib Bukele, and I'm president of El Salvador. Great ideas are beautiful and have great power. But like most beautiful things, they can also be more fragile than we think. When I was a kid, we thought about the future and we were delighted by its possibilities. We couldn't wait for it to happen and be part of its creation. But now, ask almost anyone what they think about the future and they will say something along the lines of nuclear war, climate catastrophe, hunger, pestilence, the death of life. We didn't take care of the beautiful idea that we create our own future, that we as humanity can do almost anything that we imagine. Our ingenuity, what separates us from other species. In El Salvador, we are trying to rescue this idea and start the design of a country for the future, using the best ingredients that makes us who we are, while using sensibility to find the best examples of ideas from history and around the world. I believe Bitcoin could be one of these ideas. That is why next week, I will send to Congress a bill that will make Bitcoin a legal tender in El Salvador. In the short term, this will generate jobs and help provide financial inclusion to thousands outside the formal economy. And in the medium and long term, we hope that this small decision can help us push humanity at this tiny bit into the right direction. I enter politics to leave a legacy for my country. By what we're doing it, and by working with like-minded people, maybe we can help create a legacy for the world.
He got me a gift. He got me a gift, a soccer jersey. It's pretty sick. I want to read my favorite part from the proposed bill. Central banks are increasingly taking actions that may cause harm to the economic stability of El Salvador. That in order to mitigate the negative impact from central banks, it becomes necessary to authorize the circulation of a digital currency with a supply that cannot be controlled by any central bank and is only altered in accord with the objective and calculable criteria. So as of now, El Salvador is set to be the first Bitcoin country and the first country to make Bitcoin legal tender and treat it as a world currency and have a Bitcoin on their reserves. Strike is going to be opening an innovation headquarters in El Salvador. Blockstream is involved, which we'll learn about later. And a lot of companies in the space are going to come because a country that supports and fosters innovation is a company that this community is going to stand behind. I can build any feature I want, and the government wants innovation. They want us to improve Bitcoin, and I don't have to go get a fucking bit license. I'm also going to be open sourcing all the work I did. And it's going to be called Bitcoin for Countries. And any country that needs help, download it from the fucking internet. And you can contact me. I don't know what camera's filming me, but you call me if you need help. I'm not launching it in Europe, I'll be there. We die on this hill, I will fucking die on this fucking hill. So, today, a country plugs in into open monetary system and gives their citizens hope. Today, country chose Bitcoin as a currency with a supply that cannot be altered by a central bank. Today, humanity takes a tremendous leap forward in reinstilling human freedom and financial inclusivity. And today, I hope we all can celebrate the resilience and strength of humanity and the direction that we're bending humanity towards. Today's a really special day. Oh, I'm sorry. This is because everyone in this room, man, don't let people tell you otherwise. That you're mean on the internet, that you made a meme that offended somebody. This is all the code we wrote, all the PRs we reviewed, all the Twitter threads that defended nonsense. I didn't see Dogecoin in this presentation 1 fucking inch. This is this community. They can come after me, they can come after any individual, I'll die on this hill, but they can't stop this idea, and all the individuals, everyone in this room is gonna fight for what's right. And this is why we're all here, and it's so important, and I hope you all can get out the shower and look yourself in the mirror and say, you're improving humanity, and don't you dare let anyone tell you otherwise. There's people out there that need help, and today they got help, and this is a tremendous day for humanity. It's a tremendous fucking day, and everyone in this room should be proud.
Not gonna lie, I actually really do think he's honest now. I think he's actually crying.
Well, my clicker's dying, so I don't have my next slide. But I'll end it. The reason I labeled the talk the way I did is because I think that this is one small step for Bitcoin. It's not a big step for Bitcoin. It's just another node on the network. It's another wallet. Just another president's just another Bitcoin hodler, just like all of us. The network doesn't know who he is. The network doesn't give a fuck.
Have you guys noticed how many people have come into the chat, said, I'm selling my Bitcoin and Ethereum because of this? They're clearly bots. Why are bots being circulated around to say that while this is live? That seems really sus.
And if he gets mad at the network's not going to flinch. He mines an invalid block. My node won't accept it. It's a small step for Bitcoin. It's a small step for Bitcoin. But it's a giant step and a giant leap for humanity. And the fact that there are people that needed hope and they found it in Bitcoin, and this community's fought for this moment, and I wanted to share it with you guys, and I'm so proud of everybody in this room. And we got a lot of work to do, but I hope today you find solace in knowing that you help those that haven't been helped in maybe 250 years. So I'm done. The clicker's done. I'm way over time, but I fucking love you guys, man. I'm so proud of everybody in this room. And look.
Notice how people who didn't even come in and say that are now saying, yeah, I'm not a bot, or we're not bots. But those weren't even people that came in and said that, so. You'll always know bots. Bots now are smart enough to interpret when you say the word bot on stream, and then they start saying they're not bots. The fun part is that they don't have any context, and so it's pretty easy to identify.
Holy shit. Did I not say we were saving the best for last? Thank you for coming to Bitcoin 2021. This is what
All right, so the announcement was that I guess the president, I don't know if he was the president, someone in politics in El Salvador, someone in a position, is proposing a bill to make Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador. Now, that's great. Certainly nothing bad about that. However, a bill is so far from being law. I think it's awesome. It's a great first step. Some country had to do it first. Awesome. But man, if that gets passed, it will be historic. So that was the announcement. I guess it was bigger than I thought it would be, so I'll take the L on that one.
what we're all about. I was trying to think of what are some closing message to share. I want to thank Jack for that. Was an amazing announcement, and also thank you for the IndyCar. Jack, you're killing it, man. Thank you. I want to thank Ross Ulbricht for being brave, even at his own expense. And Ross had a message. Bitcoin is hope. Bitcoin is hope. And when I think about how is it possible that Ross is in jail for longer than El Chapo is in jail for, it's because they wanted to send us a message. They wanted to make sure everyone in here knew that if you step out of line, this is what they'll do to you. All right? And we heard their message, and guess what? We are not afraid. All right? Are you afraid? Fuck no. Thank you. So, thank you for coming to this conference. We're just getting fucking started. This event would not be possible without all of you, without all the artists, the speakers, without the Bitcoin Magazine team, without Trade Group, without Reaction AV, without Jack Mahlers. I mean, this is the conference. If I was a Bitcoiner, I'd want to fucking go to, all right? So thank you. So, we got a small announcement we want to make here about Bitcoin 2022. I hope I see you there. We have perhaps the funniest man in America to come out after this. Have a good time. And we have the ambulances queued up outside of the after party venue so that we can carry you out on stretchers later on. So let's show the world how much fun we have. Everyone on the live stream watching, thank you. Join this revolution, join this movement. See you next year.
Yep, so that was it. That was pretty good. I will say it certainly got better from when we started and Ross was talking. I mean, my heart goes out to him. That man does not deserve to be put to death for starting the Silk Road, but man, that story, that was rough to listen to, and I think a lot of it was off topic. I think that's fair and probably all I'll say. The announcement. They announced the announcement. The announcement was better than I expected. Now that is a big deal, but it's just not. It's not environment changing right now. If that bill becomes a law for anyone tuning in, the announcement was that Congressman or President was putting a bill into Congress in El Salvador to make Bitcoin legal tender. If that passed, it would be huge. It would be massive. I mean, I guess I'm used to hearing about U.S. bills, and man, there's been bills for everything. In the U.S., at least, you know, that's my only comparison I can draw from. Virtually meaningless to propose a bill, but hey, you got to start somewhere. The first bill in the first country to put the first step forward towards having it be legal tender, I think is pretty cool. But man, if that gets approved, that's going to be historic. Anyway, yeah, thanks for joining, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the stream. We're live here with technical analysis. Usually today, there's not a lot going on. Figured why not just have a little commentary, watch the conference. But I enjoyed it. I don't know if you guys did. Hopefully you did. But we'll be back to the regular programming schedule tomorrow. Or maybe in a little bit if it gets spicy here. I don't know. Doesn't really seem like it's going to. Anyway, what am I eating? Yogurt covered blueberries. No thanks. Yuck. I mean, it's cool. I thought the announcement was going to be something way lamer, so they got me there. I thought it was going to be awful. Just a little better. Anyways. Yep, that's that. Thanks for joining us, guys. Make sure you're subscribed. Tune in tomorrow. Jump in the Discord. Links in the top of the chat. You guys are the best.